What's up? How y'all feeling? That's terrible. What's up? How y'all feeling? Yeah. Okay, so I'm not the kind of performer that's gonna like stand here. One, I said performer, not reader, right? Like I'm not gonna do the thing where like I stand here and I do this thing in a bubble and like you just all like to yourself. No, I want this to be a conversation. I want this to be interactive. That mic is, okay, hi Mike. Feel free to laugh, feel free to like smile, feel free to like, ugh. All of those things are necessary. Feel free to throw things, but just don't hit me, right? Like if it lands in the general vicinity because you're amazed, cool, great. But hitting my actual body may cause the poem to stop, cool? So that's cool with y'all? Yeah. Yo, Isis, what we gonna do, man? Man, we just gonna play them off. Shake them off, shake them off. Okay, so I'm really excited to be able to be here today. I hope that you all enjoy the work. We'll do a few poems. I know it's supposed to be like a standard Q&A at the end, but also if you're like me, you can't hold questions to the end. I'm not that person. I'm the one that like talks over you because my mind is moving too fast, and I'm not rude, but I just can't like remember this for long enough. So if something happens and you just like stick a hand up or like two finger me, like this, not, that sounded gross. Okay, but like you get my point, right? Like stick two fingers up, I will acknowledge you and then we will keep it moving. Yeah, okay. Here we go. The time we learned to report. Summer stoop, South Central Los Angeles. Two children playing news. Josh kneels behind a makeshift cardboard desk, his 9-year-old legs finding it awkward to bend into childhood. Within reach, a yellow Play School tape recorder. Inside, a cassette labeled Summertime Jams. MC Hammer, Ace of Base. Recording tabs taped up, cued for erasing and re-recording. Josh broadcast. Breaking news. Today, a house built by my own two hands went up into a ball of flames. Inside, G.I. Joe tried to save babysitter Barbie, but it was too late. Tearjerker. Now let's go to Amanla in the field. Amanla, his sister, 5, pushes flower barrettes from her forehead. Spoon microphone clings to her chin. Today, the jump rope record was broken again. 20 times and counting. I did it. I'm the bet. Josh interrupts. Says not news. Too naive. Can't see what's important. Table shudders under silent weight. Amanla stomps out, whispers, I'm gonna tell. Now live from the fields, cutouts spilling from cupped hands. Watch the story light. First time around the block. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Feet syncopate hopscotch under ripe street lights. Sun crawls down the backside of the mountain. We sand our hands on rubber balls. We bout Sally Walker and a cool drink of Kool-Aid powdered in sugared Ziploc till all parts of our mouths are stained cherry rebel defiant. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Streets so alive in LA. Nobody want the night to come, just want the day forever. Run like highway. Turn ourselves invisible when mama calls. Don't take that ball all angry that the day done left you, boy. That street light not hot yet. Ignore the glow for the sting of pop rocks in our cheeks and big league tiring our chew. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. This time, when mama calls, seems more ambulance in her throat, more flashing lights in her eyes, more than just halogen flickering bulb on concrete. She says our names like they are blood moons on a clear sky that no one wants to see. Like they are routine turned into red mouth outcry, a frenzy of our shadowy feet cockroaching from the asphalt towards our mother's arms unaware. 5, 4, 3, 2, run. The unknowing left that night. We watched their feet turn Rodney's soccer ball. Police no longer a place to run when lost. Police run longer or be a lost place. Gushing a bloody drink, more thirsty for the darkness than the sun, and we, chalk outlined number, needing to be stomped. Y'all good? I can respond. This is the part where you're like, it's just like silence. Like, You don't have to clap, but like breathe, like something like this. I gotta hear something, y'all. So as I went through this book, I started thinking through like all the things that made me understand what racism was, right? Like from an early age, they always say that like your book should answer a question, right? And I was like, this book answers the question, why are black people so angry, right? Like, I think I hear that a lot as like a refrain. And the assumption is that black people are angry like right now, like all the time, when the reality is like we're not angry day 1 or day 2, week 3, right? We're angry year 20 of watching systematic things play out over and over and trends play out over and over again to the point that we are conditioned to think that they are okay, yeah? And so for me, starting with Rodney King was necessary because I remember being in LA near, right around the time that he was beaten, and my mom taking me to, like, right after the Watts riots that broke out, or the LA riots that broke out right after that, my parents took me into LA and they put like this orange vest on me and they told me that I had to like clean up after the riots. And I was like 8 years old, y'all. Like I'm not that old, right? Like I'm black don't crack, but I mean, I ain't that old, right? And I remember being like, I don't understand why I have to do this. Like I'm 8, I want to go outside and play. Like I don't want to clean up ashes and like people's foolishness. And my dad was like, this might not be your neighborhood, but this is your community, right? Like in this understanding that community stretches larger and more profoundly than maybe we think that it does, and resonates and holds responsibility in ways that we didn't think that it held. And so for me, I couldn't ignore my own family when writing about instances and understandings of authority and their misuses. I had to talk about my brother. Josh, 15, ventures out, now with an adolescent need for speed. He forgoes dressing, white flag of a t-shirt and boxer shorts. He's not planning on stopping anywhere. Officers pull him over on the 91 between Compton and his home. Say he was driving 20 over the limit. Say he was swerving, but don't test his breath. They record his name as an alias for a fugitive of a similar name. Different face, address, age, but similar name, wanted for grand theft auto. Josh, visibly shaken, denies any affiliation. Still booked. He is now suspect. He calls his mother, but it is the middle of the night. It rings unanswered in the dark. Weird silhouettes, bodies morphed into shadows, lost to the spotlight. So you might want to know what happened to him, which is what most people ask. And he spent 6 days in a maximum security prison at the age of 15 for grand theft auto because they never ran his fingerprints. Yeah, so much fun. And I remember my mom pulling me out of school for an entire week, right, to take me down and to go to the jail and to like bang on the door and be like, he's innocent, he's innocent, he's innocent. And like every black mom that's here, they're yelling he's innocent. They paid her just that much attention, right? Until the day of his arraignment. Back of the courtroom, Mother and Amanla unwelcome flies on the wall. Their sweaty palms, the creaking threat of being held in contempt. The judge calls his name. Orange and filthy, a broken Oreo weighted down by chains. After 7 days, he did not know how to lift his head. Amanla, just a chick herself, replaying every rumble on the back porch, the adults holding court, every whisper that said he had always been rebellious, now this. The judge raises his gavel. A moment released. No contest. Amanla expects Mother to take flight to him, swoop beneath his falling body and give him rescue. But the door is open and she is gone. Whistles for Amanla to come. That's not how freedom works. You should know the rules by now. Their parents take Josh and Amanla to a restaurant. Josh had barely eaten, not bathed in a week. Local authorities enter, sit near the entrance of the establishment. Josh, not done, at the sight of the 4 uniformed patrolmen, sits up straight. Suspect goes silent, slows to chew each bite like a leather bit, looks at his baby sister Amanla and swallows. Slow motion whiplash, hands held under the table. We can't clean our plates. So I started continuing this thought, right, of thinking that obviously my brother was not the only one, right, unfortunately. There's a pattern. And I didn't really write about that pattern or about really even blackness prior to this book. And that's a lie, but it's the truth. Things can be, like I say, truth is a pendulum. I think that for me, everything I wrote was black because I am, right? And I own that. But to explicitly talk about the things and the struggles of people who look like me was something that I veered away from, right? Because I'm like almost 6 foot with an afro and like I'm black with big hips. Like y'all expect me to smell, it's like sell incense and like shea butter, right? So I like wanted to do something more unexpected. But then it got to a point where I felt like I was just overwhelmed and like inundated by images of bodies, whether it was on Facebook timeline, like Twitter, like everything was just always a video that auto-played itself when I didn't want to that day. And I often say the first person that I watched die was on Facebook, right? Like, and I didn't click on it because I wanted to see that. It played automatically in my timeline, and I watched somebody expire before me. And I just like got sick of it. And I was like, you know, at the time I was performing, I was in poetry slams and I was traveling all over the nation, and I was just so utterly wrecked by the faces of these young kids disappearing off the face of this earth for things as simple as a can of Arizona tea, right? A mistaken wallet. Thinking Amadou Diallo was shot 41 times, 19 landed in his body, right? Like this just egregious, overdone overkill of the black body. Here we go. It's enough talking. I don't want to hear me talk. Here we go. I have felt the weather changing, seen the falling leaves painting the sidewalk in mosaic of autumn. As a transplanted Texan, these hoof-printed falls only remind me of one thing, and this year I heard the government is opening hunting season early. Now, every good hunter knows you need 2 things to be successful: a good dog and a good gun. Gotta have something to sniff and some way to shoot. It's important to get as close to your target as humanly possible. Make sure they can't see you clearly. This can be tricky. Hunting, the thicket, and the cloak of night offer easy solutions now. There's no use in standing on top of an open hill watching surrounding pastures and bushy banks if they're out of range. No, a better location is just inside the hood, I mean woods. So that if a boy, buck approaches, you can move back and stalk through cover. Now this could take years to perfect. I spotted one once, dark fur, oversized antlers, say the ones whose pelt sags just below their waist have the most tender innards. This one looked injured, dipped when he walked, hand holding his private like somebody already took a shot at him, looked under 35, that's good. Get him too old, they might have learned how to run, might have learned how to keep quiet and invisible. They say the most popular attractant is corn, but I've learned flashy jewelry, loud music do the trick. When a guaranteed kill, you can use some paper money. You can also purchase a call. One sounds like a mother's voice screaming out to Jesus. The other, the ringing of Sean's wedding bells. The last one sounds like a sweet young girl whispering, I love you. Anything that sounds familiar or offers false hope. Once you got them in your crosshairs, aim right under the hoodie, stand your ground, shoot and kill, invite a friend, tell them, we don't shoot to eat, we hunt for the fun of the sport. Let's see how many rounds we could put in him for his knees to buckle, for his family to come looking for him, you know. The younger it is we catch him, the more likely it is we'll make the news. Picture us standing next to his 145-pound trophied body like the catch of a lifetime. We could be legends like Irwin v. Crocodile or Fudd v. Duck or Police v. every black body. It's human nature that the more dominant species assert themselves over the one who posed the greatest threat. That's how we define a hero here in this thicket and this brush. They can try to camouflage themselves, but nothing that young, that black, that male will ever fit in. I followed one once for 19 blocks. Let my canine sniff out his blackberry scent. Didn't have my shotgun, so I just shot till my gun was empty. I wore his skin like a Halloween costume. They say the darker the hide, the sweeter the blood. And this year I've learned the government is waiving fees for permits. All you need is a rifle, a motive, a good hiding place. Try an alley next to a low-performing high school. Don't have one. Use your own front yard. Plant a hedge. Stand in plain sight. Remember, if they come near you, it's only defending yourself. This is the circle of life. Somebody gotta be predator. Something. Someone always. Gotta pray. I'm like, y'all, the silence is bothering me. No, it doesn't, you don't have just like, something.
Gotta pray at the end. How did you spell pray?
That's a great question that you have to buy the book to find out. I'm just joking. That would be petty, wouldn't it? Okay, it's, actually, I don't know how did I spell it, Kate? Kate is my publisher at Bloomsday Literary, and she's selling books today, and I don't know the answer to that. She'll tell you in a minute, though. Did I use the E or the A? I like homonyms, so I don't know. Did I use an A? Sure. I use whatever you want me to use today. Okay, while she figures it out, we're going to keep it moving. Oh, yeah. So in the book, this is this great thing. In the book, there's actually a separate version of this same poem. And so you have to, like, read it and find out. I don't know. That's right. I remember what we replaced it with. Yeah, it's a different version. Haha. Y'all can laugh. Like, I know it's a serious topic, but also, right? Like, one of the questions people often ask me is like, how do you write about this and still find joy? And I was like, what? Like, I think that's a really weird question because I feel like for people, especially who grew up poor like I did, like, joy wasn't something that was separate from the suffering. Like, joy was entangled with it, right? Like, I think of playing Pictionary by candlelight because my lights got turned off. Probably like the most fun version of that thing ever, right? I remember playing like hide and go seek in the dark because we didn't have no lights. But like there was no lack there, right? There was no poverty there. And I think for us, even in times where we see that there's this external struggle and even internal sometimes, that doesn't mean that it removes joy, right? It stands right next to joy. And they're obviously in conflict, but we have to find a way, or there would be no way for us to be able to live, right? Like to move on. And so speaking of joy, like I found myself, watching the newscast talk about the death of Trayvon Martin with a child in my stomach, right? How do you hold life and hold a child and know the dangers that you're bringing them into and be okay with that, right? Like there is this constant paradox, I think, for people of color that says that we're always hunted and praying, right? Like I think we are both those things. So I remember like how the iced tea we used to brew on my mother's back porch just outside her garden, how it steeped against the ground till deep seated, how the sticky sweet Alabama honey got to art everywhere. I wonder how hard they had to scrub to get the Trayvon off. Was it calm, George, calling it in? Dream of paradise under an Arizona's rainbow, a sepia ignorant bliss. Whisper under your breath that if we stack flowers at every site, this world can be Eden again. I stand here in the wilderness of kitchen, a linoleum tile dry bubbling beneath my feet. Our nursery is quiet tonight for all of the right reasons. The eerie of Crib Mobile plays soundtrack to a muted television. Over a casket of fruit spoiling before bite. Under the crescendo of a kettle, in the most shameful whisper, I say, I'm so glad we had a girl. And I wish something like having a girl was like enough to like stop it, right? I'm gonna stop right here. There's a piece that should be in the book I realized like 2 weeks ago, but that doesn't work when you publish the book a year ago. Funny enough, I think Kate tried to get me to put this in the book too. Anyways, I wanted like my womanness to be the thing that protected me. And then like Rakia Boyd, and then like Dejaria, and then like Sandra Bland, and then it just seemed to be that there was nothing that protected me. And so I think that we try to find places that offer safety. And a lot of us, right, because of the Southern upbringing, we run to the church, right? Church, safety, those two things go together, yeah? You can hear, right? Can you hear me? Can you hear my stomp? I couldn't have nobody praying. Lord, I couldn't have nobody praying. When I went way down yonder by myself, and I couldn't have nobody praying. Say, oh Lord. Upon entering your church, the devil don't always appear out of place. Remember, he was once an angel and still remembers how to sing, how to hold the harmony of a Charleston day in his cheek like a dirty tobacco, how to ride a hymn of rage through 3 hours of traffic, only to cloak himself sheep familiar and enter into our fellowship hall. We welcomed him like the saints we didn't know we were becoming, sat him close as kin, wanted him to feel this Jesus all over him, felt the shiver in the room, thought it the Holy Ghost, didn't know it was fear and skin and gun. We sat a semi-automatic away, judgment held in his tongue like hollow point. We swayed in unison, didn't know there was a fury a-coming, didn't know repentance had a skin color. Sanctuaries weren't made for shootings. Bibles weren't made to catch bullets. He held my hand in prayer as if we had the same Father. Looked me square in my flesh and couldn't bear the black forgiveness. Who knew Wednesday nights were made for weeping? No joy to cometh in our morning. The shots, like all our organ strings breaking at once. The shots, like a fleeting exodus of guardians' wings. We screamed. No made man and tremble. No duck and pray in chaos. Our bodies slain in the wrong spirit, looking for a savior to show up in survival. I thought if I paint myself in the blood, he'd confuse me for Passover. I held my firstborn's cooling hand. Life leaving him fast as hallelujah. God our Father, don't let him see us. Make us a marsh of mangled messengers. Settle our spirits amongst the sinking stillness. Let us be Daniel in a den of death and close his eyes to us with each inching step. I tried not to cringe. Tried to control my blinks. My breath, psalms pouring from my palms as he paused. A thief in the night looking for one more colored soul to leave coals bordered on this here chapel floor. Wait. There must have been an uneasy conviction pushing him out. Turn. God's eyes watching as he ran from his grace. Breathe. The floorboards quieted their 100-year-old mouths. The hum of AC and fleeting soul faded into a muffled corpse of silence. And I couldn't hear nobody praying. I couldn't hear nobody. So we hunt down then what makes us safe, which that or we run into realizing that nothing does, which sounds like a very desperate space, right? To realize that you're never safe. But there's something very much like in grief where acceptance plays its role that I think happens to people who are constantly in danger, where we come to learn the rules. That's what happens when you have big fingers. Oh, forgive me. And I feel like, that's not it. Sorry, y'all. I had this in my other book marked. I found myself adjusting to how things had to be until Sandra Bland. Sandra, it's funny, this book starts about 68 miles from my front door, and it ends 38 miles out my back door with the death of Sandra Bland. And I think it's just interesting to me of proximity and closeness and how, for me, I didn't know Sandra at all and simultaneously was 1 degree of separation from her. One of my closest friends actually went to school with Sandra at Prairie View and had planned to introduce us at a party because he said we were kindred spirits. Slit your wrist now. Blend your broken with mine. Us be family. Have a pact. Sealed in blood. You will do it. Whichever of us they come for next won't run or cower. See the red scope light on you? See how your chest welcomes a sniper's round? Know much how much power lives in blackout. We can't shy away. Cut deep into the darkness, round the tendons and muscle inside your cheek. Kiss me. Death has a badge and a reason to brandish. Hurry, this urgency is a now kind of thing. We all gotta go sometime. Now it's just more promise. Swiftly. It's a now or now. We don't know, no, never. Speak our name. Say we are the same or fuck us. Hope it's you. Just so it ain't me. The time we shook to death. In the stretch of I-10 from Baton Rouge to Houston, Vider. Historical Bermuda Triangle for all things black. Husband and Amanla rushing back to watch their children rise for school. The lights flick on just past city limits. Trains now, after Philando. Amanla knows the drill. Hands on dash, head bowed, window cracked just enough to be audible, phone landscape to cover the widest terrain. Mothers are supposed to shield their children's eyes when their fathers expire before them. Her children are asleep in their own beds, but her hands itch to press their lids closed harder. She sees him laid before her, his last breath brushed across her cheek. The officer shines in on her hands, tells her all of that is not necessary. Yes, she says, it is. She talks loud and clear for the transcript to come. He runs his hand across the butt of his gun, then disappears. She and her husband are two branches on the same road. She takes fear, he takes resolve. Wonders why she is so afraid. He is reconciled that death has godly timing. She prays not to know God this way. The officer returns with a warning for driving on the left too long. He tells them to get right, drives away. Amanla shakes through hours of alternate endings. His hand in hers, pulse elevated. Highways in moonlight, how we tremble together. This, the way we love. All right, yeah, you can clap now. It's over. That's it. So this is like the Q&A time. So are you coming back up, or is it just open? We're open. Yes. So yeah, talk to me. These are the kind of questions I entertain. Anything about the work, anything about my craft, and then random questions that have nothing to do with any of it because we need levity. So things like, why do penguins wear tuxedos? I will answer it in the most poetic fashion I can. If you need a break to breathe, I can do that. Cool? Questions? Anyone?
Why do penguins wear tuxedos?
Well, you know, they say dress for the job that you want, not the job that you have, right? And penguins are always on their grind looking up for the next thing. That's what it is. Yeah, you should learn from the penguin. They're ready. Yeah. Anyone else?
Yes. Is it on?
No.
No. All right. Don't be shy. Somebody ask a question. Break the ice.
Yes. Oh, that was really loud.
Struck throughout all of the poetry that you read, the incredible vivid imagery that you use. How do you find the right words in your writing?
Ooh, how do I find the right words? I try a whole bunch of bad ones first. And then I think for me, like, I was a photographer. That's not true. I was a writer first, always. Oh, hey, there's a mic. So did y'all all hear the question? This is me just stalling time. She said, how do I pick the right words for the images since everything is so image-based? I mean, I think that we remember things vividly when we give ourselves to them for real, right? When we let ourselves sit with a moment, I think everything comes back to us. I think also, though, like, I think writers have this, like, innate DNA that makes them notice the stupidest things to other people. You know, when I walk into a room, I remember things like what color the hand sanitizer was, right? Like, I'm always looking for these small, nuanced details, and I think allowing myself to fully give to that means that people who don't know anything or don't feel the thing behind what I feel can see it so vividly that they have to. And so Yeah, I think it's just a playing with until I feel like I found the right balance. That's not a good answer, but it's the answer. Okay, cool. Thank you for saying it's good. I'll take it. Anything else? Yes. Yes. You're going to get all your steps in. You're getting all your steps in today.
So, I want to know, do you base all of your poems in personal experiences or the experiences of others?
Yes.
Yes.
It is both those things. Yeah, I mean, definitely in the church, that wasn't my experience. There was a woman who lost her only child. She was the only survivor of the Charleston shooting, right? And so that was absolutely her story. That was not mine. But I felt like it matches well with the problem that we're talking about, right? Whether it's an active shooter, which is now like normal, I don't even understand y'all, right? All of them are abuses of power. All of them change wildly in the media. All of them, some of them are even sparked by the media, right? Like if we start to really examine it. And so I think for me, it falls in this canon well, yeah.
Okay, so have you actually interviewed some of these persons?
Nope.
Face to face?
No. That would make sense, right? But that's really hard to do. I definitely am like 1 degree of separation away from a lot of them, but most of my stuff is done in research. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Oh, just joking. I'm just looking. I'm not in control of anything.
Alright, so I really liked how you started off like this whole speech. Like you had said that like you started off the question saying like why are black people always mad or angry, like, and you said because it's like not a problem that's been going on for like weeks or anything. It's been like years and years, and it's true. Like I really believe that's true because it could date back to like times of slavery. Like just going through all that, it's like a mental image in your brain. Like they can't break away, and then like it's almost like their own family members. Like when you're born into this society, it's like they're putting their own selves down because they don't want to be anything. They just want to be in the streets. They want to be like good. But I want to know like what made you like realize all that? Realize that it's not something that happened like it's really been a long like.
I mean, I don't know. I don't think that there was like, it wasn't a Damascus moment where like I fell on my knees and was like, oh, struggle. Or like I think that I was raised by a woman who was raised in Tuscaloosa, Alabama in 1952, right? Like, ugh, right? I think like I've been hearing it since I was little. I think that like my grandmother was the same way, right? Like I'll answer that better. Take all that back. Because all of it's true, but take all that back. They actually just did a study I was reading like yesterday, because I'm a nerd and I like read all kind of articles just because. And they were saying that they've done these experiments that have shown that that through your genes, our experiences change the way that we react to trauma. So like the way that your mother reacted to trauma in your DNA is built your reaction to trauma. Crazy, right? Like, so I think that's why it's not reactionary, right? Like, is that my very cells have told me for a very long time, right? Like for generations, that trauma was a thing we needed to react to, and has taught me how to examine, how to encounter trauma and to live with it and to reconcile with it. And so I think yeah, that's my answer.
It's almost like you're like going around with the right people that kind of like guide you.
I mean, yeah, sure. And I think that if nobody had been around me, I still would know what it's like to be black and at the end of a gun from a cop. I mean, like, unfortunately, right? And you'll see in the book, I get into a fight with an officer in the middle of the street. I'm not gonna tell you what happens. I'm here, so there's that, right? Like, but none of that is fictional. Yeah. Yes. Hi.
What might have brought you to the school, college?
To your college? Initially, this one right here, one of my very close friends, Isis. And then I was invited as part of the speaking series, which I was very grateful to have that invitation. I think in general, though, I found a really great home in looking at Houston education. I'm a teacher, so I love to be in places of higher education and to have these conversations, because I think that that's where solutions come. Yeah.
Are you an optimist?
Oh yeah, like I'm a hopeless romantic. I'm a wild optimist. I'm a wild realist that leans towards optimism.
Well, it seemed that way to me. So,
Oh, yeah.
what is it that makes you such?
Because the other way is a very sad way to live. That's not a good answer either. But I think especially, like I have two small children. I have a 2-year-old and a 6-year-old. It's very difficult to be a pessimist with a 2-year-old, right? Like I think 2-year-olds are like bottled optimism most of the time. It's very easy for them to be like, but there's always candy, Mom. You know what I mean? Like I think that, you know, giving to that and wanting to hope that there's a solution. I think I need to be an optimist or I wouldn't be able to function. I need to believe that there's hope. I need to believe that things will be better. I need to believe that decades and years and centuries of foolishness will one day just like wake up and be like, I'm done, right? Like I need that for my own survival, yeah?
I have a question for you. You said that you were a teacher, right?
Yep.
So, as you know, I'm Mexican.
Yep.
An immigrant. Well, I was born here, but since my parents were immigrants, we had to go back to Mexico. And I'm from a state called Michoacan.
Fair.
It's very dangerous there. There's a lot of killings, cartels, whatever. And so we came later on as I got older, in my teens. I came here to the United States. Obviously, I was mad already from what I went through in Mexico, and then I come here and I kind of got my head in swivel, right? But you said as a teacher, do you sometimes get frustrated with parents, you know, or with students that you try to, you're not saying that you're enlightened, but you're trying to show them, hey, I'm trying to show you something. As a parent, you need to involve more with your children. And I get frustrated with parents also, with other, parents that, I try to tell them, hey, have your child read, have your child read history, let them know what's really going on. Because in Mexico, for many years, almost 80, 90 years, we were ruled by a party called D.E.E.P. And they were, pretty racist also, because if you were dark, Indio, they'd be mad at you.
Yep.
And they treat you bad. And then you come here, and we came here looking for a better life, and people are mad.
Yeah.
They're mad. But why are you, sometimes I'm like, if you're mad, do something about it, We can't all be revolutionaries like in Mexico, because look how that showed up.
Fair.
And so instead of fighting the system, join the system, see how you can beat it from within. You get kind of what I'm beginning to say.
I do.
You try to tell the parents and try to teach the kids, and as you see the kids grow up, sometimes you see some kids grow up to be, get their degrees and be professionals and do something for a change, and then you see the other ones fall back and fall into the wrong hands and wrong roads.
Such like a loaded question, but yes, I hear what you're saying. No, you're fine. I think that to say join the establishment and work from the inside out is one way, right? It is not the only way that works. I think that the reality is like the dismantling of oppression and oppressive systems is a multifaceted strategic attack on oppression, yeah? So like, yes, joining the establishment at some part is a thing, right? And yes, also the reformed ex-convict who gets out and turns to his neighborhood and knows them better than anybody else has the experience to come in and say, I understand this voice and I can speak for this voice, right? Like, so I hesitate to say like there is a wrong and a right way to do it. I think that I wouldn't be the person that I was without some of the dumbest mistakes that I made, right? And I think that instead of looking at it as this very polar black, white with no gray, that the reality is that somewhere in the gray is the answer, right? Somewhere in this combined efforts is the answer. And so, my first 2 schools that I taught at were almost 100% Latinx. I speak Spanish a little bit. I'm not gonna say I'm bilingual by no means, but I speak enough to talk to parents, I think that I've found, I grew up in Southern California, which was Mexico, right? Like at one point in time. So I feel like for me, there's been a shorter bridge between the Latinx experience and the Black experience as far as oppression goes. And I don't mean the same kinds of oppression, but I mean like understanding what it feels like to be the target, right? Than maybe other cultural things in America. And so I think that once we start removing those boundaries that say we are one or the other, and we start looking at the overarching problems, the systems, classism, and all of those things, we can start to make changes that move and permeate beyond race and ethnicity and these social boundaries that we've established for ourselves, and we start making change that affect humans. Yeah? Was that a good answer?
Yeah. Okay. You hit the point where it says that we sometimes we put our own boundaries.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yes.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, but not the microphone, but you're fine. I can still hear you, hon.
I have a teacher's voice, so okay.
I love it. Teacher voice. Let's go.
Thank you for being here. And,
Thank you for having me.
Sharing your work with us. I have a question about poetry and art more generally as itself a form of activism.
Yeah, let's go.
I'm curious about just your experience with it, how effective you think it is at changing hearts and minds.
Yeah, I sat in this room for the last 30 minutes and, you know, people all around that look all different and all things are now talking about issues that relate to black people. That should tell you how effective it is, right? I mean, reality. I had my work actually presented at a conference in Munich last week where a panel of people translated and discussed the death of Tamir Rice for over a half an hour. On what other world, like what else but art would do that, right? Like I feel like it's wildly impactful. I'm actually teaching a course on art and activism right now and talking about like how do we measure activist movements within the art community and how do we curate them, right? Specifically creating art that moves the needle on discussions, because I think there's a lot of ways to be an activist. And for so long we've thought about it as like, here's a picket sign and I'm gonna walk and tie myself to a tree, but those are not always the most impactful. I think that sometimes having a conversation with someone who varies greatly from you is probably the best like fire starter to some really great moments of activism. So absolutely I think art is, absolutely I think poetry is, I think writing in general is. And for people who say that it's not, I ask them, is James Baldwin an activist? And they all say yes, and then I say, but what did he do? And then nobody can answer me outside of write and read what he wrote. So I think that is proof of itself, yeah?
We do have her books on sale.
Yay!
So we have time for one more question. Does anybody else have a question that we could ask? Anybody that hadn't asked? Luan, did you have one? No? Okay, Jacob, go ahead and ask another one. You gotta speak up. There's no microphone.
Yeah, I noticed. So, Kieran says that you are Houston poet laureate.
I was, yes.
What is that?
Yeah. So I explain it one of two ways. I was the ambassador of poetry for the city of Houston. My term ended in April. Or I'm the mayor's poetic hype man, whichever one you want to take, right? That is generally the job. I come out, bless the space with poems or conversation starters. In addition to that, I was leading community workshops and developing community programming surrounding poetry in specific communities for me, which were the Complete Communities Initiative, which is predominantly low-income communities. And then working on a project which I took 32 other artists and myself and created an audio-visual tour of the city of Houston and the neighborhoods of Houston through poetry. So that's pretty much what the job title was to do. Expand and influence the impact of poetry across the city of Houston. Yeah. Yep, I still do. Yep, always will.
Yeah, so it's really interesting that your job is expanding the ideas that will confront the common ideas
Yeah.
of racism.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't think every poet laureate is going to do it the way that I did, and that's cool. I did it the way that I'm going to do because I'm going to, do it the way that I am. But I think the position in and of itself is one that it should be liaison between government and civil issues, right? So I think in some ways it's always going to be a position of an activist. Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank y'all for listening.
You can, huh?
No, I'm saying thank y'all for listening.
Thank you very much.
Be sure to follow us on social media at Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Like this video, leave a comment, and hit that subscribe button to be notified about our latest content.